we're gonna do something funny. We're gonna go switch to something fun. So, yeah. So we're gonna do every dumbest criminal fail in 16 minutes. So apparently this is gonna be 16 minutes of dumbass criminals failing. Hi, late, I remember. Yeah, this one should be interesting, and this one could be a laugh. So, yeah, I think it will be, Liv. I do indeed think it will be. So, let's see how dumb some of these criminals are.
Darren Kimpton. So let's just assume you were thinking about burglaring a house to steal stuff. One of the very first things you'd try to do is find the perfect target, right? Like an empty house or something. Well, a man by the name of Darren Kimpton did the direct opposite of that. This guy was so unlucky that he chose a house full of police officers. Yep, a house full of law enforcement officers. What actually happened was that the house he had selected had already been burgled earlier in the evening, so the police officers were there to investigate. Just imagine the shock that would be on everyone's face when they literally caught Kimpton breaking into a house red-handed. You'd think that after such a catastrophic failure, Darren would call it a night, but...
This reminds me of... Okay, I remember seeing a video. It was like, you know, one of those like cop show where it was like, you know, the cop police chase shows. And they didn't always just do police chases. They did like anything law enforcement related. This reminds me of, I saw a video where a cop is in a convenience store. In uniform. Bearing in mind, this police officer is in full uniform. On the job. Full uniform, badge, duty belt, vest, weapon, the works. Okay? You cannot look at this person and not go, that's a police officer. He's actually identified as a police officer. He was in a convenience store.
I got a rock.
And I forget if he was like buying something or he was just talking to the clerk or something. Another customer walks in. And the police officer's like, okay, and he steps back and he backs up out of the way because I guess he either wasn't buying anything or he was just chatting or whatever. The guy walks up to the counter. The police officer is 3 fucking feet away. This guy tries to rob the convenience store with the cop standing there 3 feet away. Literally tries to rob the place with the cop standing there. And as I'm sure no one will be surprised, the cop is just acting really casual, and then draws down on him and tells him to get the fuck on the ground. At gunsight. So yeah, that's what Darren Kimpton reminds me of, is that one of those kinds of incidents.
But no, our boy Darren is nothing if not committed to bad decisions. Earlier that same evening, he had tried breaking into another house, but bungled it so badly he left blood at the scene. That's right, Darren managed to cut himself during his first attempt and left DNA evidence behind, making him one of the easiest criminals to track.
Okay. I'm gonna do a hold there. I'm gonna do a hold there because depending upon where this occurred, the vast majority of police departments will not collect and process DNA evidence at a burglary. They will not do that. Burglaries, they'll do fingerprints. They will not do blood evidence. They'll photograph it to be sure, and maybe if they find someone with a cut that looks similar, sure. But they will not do DNA evidence on burglary cases. So Darren Kimpton cutting himself on a burglary is inconsequential. Very inconsequential. No, Big Dog, you know what? Even if it's an actual cop's house, I don't think they still would. Because here's the thing with DNA evidence. Most police departments have to send their DNA evidence to, like, a state lab. Those state labs are seriously backed up, like, by years. So, typically speaking, DNA evidence is usually only submitted for really major crimes such as SA or homicides. Things of that nature. That's the only time when cops will actively go for DNA evidence. And not even just violent crimes, Atsunashi, seriously violent crimes. And Brigand, thank you for the gifted. So that part of it, immaterial. Fingerprint evidence, sure. Fingerprint evidence, they can get processed through much faster than DNA evidence. DNA evidence, they would not have even collected it if that was the case. Not on a burglary scene.
Derek Mosley. You see, in everything you want to do in life, planning is very, very important, especially if you're trying to pull off a crime. It is literally essential that every detail be well thought through in advance. But a man named Derek Mosley didn't place very high importance on these things before he decided to rob a freaking gun store. Let's pause for a second and let that sink in. He planned to rob a store where the merchandise is literally weapons. Not a bakery.
Okay, hang on, hang the fuck on. The guns in the gun store are not loaded. Let's remember this. The guns in the case are not loaded. Now, the J10, that's where I was going. The clerks, typically speaking, if the state allows for it, do carry. Yes, that is true. But the firearms themselves that are on display are not loaded. So I've actually heard of more than a few gun store robberies that have occurred. It's not overly uncommon, honestly. But again, it very much depends upon where the gun store in question is. That is a factor. But it's the ways make it sound like, oh, you're robbing a gun store where there's guns all over the place already, but the majority of them are not loaded. So a bit disingenuous there with the context.
Not a flower shop, a place where the employees are armed, the customers are armed,
typically,
and even the cash register might have a Glock tucked away for emergencies. Well, Derek struts into the store holding a baseball bat like it's Excalibur. That's right, a baseball bat. Not a gun, or a knife at least. He quite literally brought a stick to a gunfight, and somewhere in his brain, this made perfect sense. He immediately starts smashing a glass display case and starts grabbing handguns, but here's where his genius plan starts unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. First of all, this guy didn't think about the fact that breaking glass might make a lot of noise, so the employees and customers quickly realized what was happening. Well, the store manager and every other person there with a gun just calmly pulled out their firearms, and at this point, criminal mastermind Derek is outnumbered by more guns than an action movie set. Derek now realizes he's in the middle of the world's worst heist because he's holding a baseball bat in a room full of people who could turn him into Swiss cheese in about 0.5 seconds. The sheer comedy of the moment is almost Shakespearean. By the time the police arrived, Derek had already surrendered without a fight. Well, it's not like he had any other choice. Mark Smith. Picture this. It's a crisp autumn evening in the town of Wigan, England. Mark Smith, a 33-year-old with the brain power of an unplugged toaster, makes the executive decision to embark on his own personal heist. Now, you'd think this guy would have properly arranged his tools, or at least mapped out the location of his so-called heist, right? Well, Mark here just decides to wing it. So, armed with nothing but overconfidence and a severe lack of foresight, Mark prepared for his grand operation and set his sights on robbing a local bar after hours. But there was one glaring issue. He didn't bother bringing any proper tools. Instead, on his way to the bar, Mark spotted a brick lying on the street and decided it was the perfect instrument for his plan. Yes, because nothing screams criminal genius like a random piece of masonry picked up on a whim under the...
Okay, I mean, it's not the first time.
Cheer 100. I was going to say, this actually happened in Australia. Some thug blitzed into a gun shop with a bit of rebar, neutralized the staff and took off with a lot of stock.
Yeah, sniper bait. I mean, it's not so crazy. Surprise is a powerful weapon that you can use. If you just go into a gun store and surprise everybody and just start swinging, it can work. The problem is the guy did not use his surprise well. Instead of knocking people out, started breaking glass and left everyone alone. Now, as far as this goes, using a brick is not crazy. That's honestly not so crazy of a thing of using a brick to break the glass of a place that you're wanting to burgle. So far, yeah, he's kind of stupid for not bringing anything with him to commit his crime. But plenty of people have used bricks to bust out the window of a place they plan to rob. So,
Cover of night, Mark approached the bar and prepared to make his move. He hurled the brick at the glass door with the enthusiasm of someone who's skipped physics class entirely. Unfortunately for Mark, the door was made of reinforced
tried to rob a gas station with a toilet seat that tore off the toilet.
interesting choice. Okay.
Physics class entirely. Unfortunately for Mark, the door was made of reinforced shatterproof glass designed specifically to withstand such amateur attempts, so the brick just ricocheted back with impressive force, striking Mark square in the face. Imagine a boomerang returning to its sender, but instead of being caught gracefully, it delivers a knockout blow. Mark dropped to the ground, out.
Fucking hang on. Where is it?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Cold, as if the universe itself decided to teach him a lesson about bad decision-making. Moments later, the bar owner arrived after hearing the commotion, but instead of finding shattered glass and stolen goods, they stumbled upon Mark, sprawled on the pavement in front of the bar, unconscious, with the offending brick lying incriminatingly nearby. It was as though Mark had gift-wrapped himself for the authorities, complete with a self-inflicted injury to seal the deal. Klaus Schmidt. The year is 1995 in Berlin, and everybody is busy going about their usual schedules. But then Klaus Schmidt decides that his own itinerary for the day would include bank robbery. So, armed with a pistol and the kind of confidence that only comes from watching too many action movies, this guy walks into the bank probably feeling unstoppable. But there's one teensy-weensy problem. He's stone deaf. Now, being deaf isn't an issue. The issue is that Klaus didn't realize how important listening is to a robbery. Well, he gets into the bank, waves his pistol like a madman, and makes the usual announcement. This is a robbery, everybody get down! Even though he can't hear himself. Now, the bank employees were already suspicious because he just kept repeating the same answer to literally everybody, but it wasn't until one brave employee asked Klaus,
Big dog, stop it, that's mean. Sunset Ripster, thank you for the follow. Here's the funny part. Because he's deaf, what do you want to bet nobody could understand him? Because, when deaf people try to communicate verbally, their words typically, if they've been deaf for most of their life, their words tend to be heavily slurred when they try to verbalize. Some can't. It's like if they've either spent a great deal of time learning how to speak, or if they were not born deaf and they become deaf later in life and they know the feeling of, the enunciation and everything like that, then they would be able to talk. But if someone was born deaf and they never, learned how to utilize their vocal cords to speak clearly, the majority of them sound incredibly slurred and difficult to understand.
If he needed a bag for the money, and he responded with, "You're damn right it's a real gun," their suspicions were confirmed. This guy couldn't hear anything. As the employees comply and start loading cash into a bag, one of them discreetly presses the silent alarm, and Klaus can't hear the alarm blaring through the bank. Customers are sneaking out the back.
Wait. A silent alarm was blaring through... I'm sorry. What? What? I'm sorry, did I have a stroke? This silent alarm Blary through the bank. I know I'm fixated on this, but goddamn, I just can't get past it. I might be horny and squirming right now, but I'm gonna notice when someone from my chat drops 4,000 biddies on me.
Cheer 1,000 rent for the brain cell.
Tiki J10.
Police are assembling outside, and Klaus is just standing there, probably thinking he's crushing this robbery gig. The police, now in position, used a megaphone to command Klaus to drop his weapon and surrender, but of course, Klaus couldn't hear a word, and it wasn't until an officer physically tapped Klaus on the shoulder that he finally realized his flawless heist had been foiled. With nowhere to run and no excuses left to offer, Klaus was arrested on the spot. After all, there's no point in resisting when you don't.
Cheer 200. This guy could have been great if he was not deaf. Could have. I feel sorry for him, though being deaf is hard, and I do feel bad for him, but not for the robbery.
Yeah, Brigand, I mean, with him being deaf, it's a question of why did he want to rob this bank? It does ask the question like, okay, did he do this out of desperation, or was there something more at play? And he was just like, I'm gonna rob a bank. That's the question.
Hear yourself lose. In a funny twist of events, Klaus had the audacity to sue the bank for apparently abusing his disability. The butt drug mule.
Whoa. Fucking whoa. Hold up. Back that shit up. He sued the bank for abusing his disability to catch him committing a federal crime. Am I understanding this correctly? Okay. If there is anyone in my chat from Germany, or if there's anyone watching this on YouTube from Germany, please educate me. Would this work? Like, wait, seriously, like, we've heard of fucked up lawsuits by criminals suing against their victims and winning. Would this work in a German court of in a German civil court? I would be really curious. So, if you are in my chat, if you are from Germany or on YouTube, if you are in Germany and watching this video, please enlighten me. Could this actually work? I must know.
The bank for apparently abusing his disability. The butt drug mule. So, our main character here was a wannabe Pablo Escobar who decided that his butt-clenching skills were one of a kind. Well, the man, named Kadar Abdullahi, tried to smuggle the drugs by stuffing them up his rear end. Now, this tactic is not new, but...
Red Bastard, that worked in the US. That's why I said we've heard of this shit happening in the US. I was curious if this would fly in Germany, because that's where that took place. So, yeah.
The drugs by stuffing them up his rear end. Now, this tactic is not new, but this genius managed to botch it so badly that he made headlines. You see, instead of carefully concealing small, manageable packets like most drug mules, this guy decided to go big or go in and shove 62 balloons filled with cocaine where the sun doesn't shine. Yes, 62! Imagine your most...
He tried to stuff 62 balloons of cocaine in his prison wallet. Holy fuck! Leo, we're gonna find out. And Zat Fury, thank you for the follow. Pigeon, asking the truly important questions. I would like to know that too.
Regrettable Taco Bell binge multiplied by 1,000. Now, as if the 62 balloons weren't enough trouble, our hero starts...
Cheer 100. This cannot end well, never has and never will with balance.
It's weird that the TTS pronounced balloons like that. Oh, because you had only one O. That's why. Okay.
by 1,000. Now, as if the 62 balloons weren't enough trouble, our hero started sweating profusely and looking very, very guilty at the airport security line. He was suspiciously clenching his ass cheeks like he just did the world's worst leg day, so naturally this caught the attention of officers. However, when they brought him in for questioning, he just lied and said he was full of shit instead. But since there was no metal detector beep or anything, the security had no reason to suspect him. Well, during the flight, one of the balloons decided.
Whoa! Really? I mean, I suppose that works. There's like, depending on where he's at, they couldn't do an unlawful search and
Reminds me of the
seizure.
movie Lucy. Did he gain powers due to access to his brain shear 100?
Lucy didn't have the super brain drug injected up her asshole. It was injected into her arm. Or maybe she swallowed it. I can't remember. I definitely know that it was not injected into her asshole. Okay? Trust me, if they exposed Scarlett Johansson's wonderful ass in that movie, I would have remembered it.
The security had no reason to suspect him. Well, during the flight, one of the balloons decided to burst. And this was literally like a cocaine bomb detonating inside his body.
Oh,
He immediately
no.
started to panic and spiral into a full-blown meltdown, flailing like he was auditioning for Dancing with the Drug-Induced Stars.
But-
Flight attendants had no idea what was happening.
Was it in her stomach? I thought they injected her. Was it in their stomach and burst? Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Did they surgically put it into her stomach, or if they forced her to swallow it? Yeah, they surgically placed it into her stomach. They did not keister it on her. That's right. You're right. It's been a while since I've seen Lucy. That, by the way, this bursting in his ass means that the coke actually hit his bloodstream faster and more efficiently than if he consumed it in the more normal way. It's just like if you basically consume alcohol via the rectum, you get drunk 10 times faster because it bypasses the liver entirely. So same principle applies here. Even with just one busted balloon. Because he said it was just one busted balloon. I don't think it was more, at least not, yeah, it was not more than one.
All they knew was this man was sweating, shaking, and probably smelling like regret. The flight crew had to make an emergency landing because
Cheer 100 reminds me of the lady saying, I stuck a whole bag of jelly beans up my ass.
What lady are you talking about, Broken Spine? What lady said I stuck a whole bag of jelly beans up my... Oh, it's a meme? I don't know that meme. The only meme I remember is the guy calling 911 saying that he telling the 911 operator that he shoved a whole bottle of shampoo up his ass, and then he sneezes and he says, "Oh, it popped out." That's the only meme. That's the shove me up the ass meme that I remember.
That is why this always goes wrong, because of the really high chance of it popping. Cheer 100.
Well, no kidding, Brayden. I mean, okay. Don't do drugs at all. Let me make that perfectly fucking clear. Don't do drugs at all. Don't try and transport drugs at all. It's illegal for a reason.
our butt smuggler was now overdosing mid-flight. Thankfully, the paramedics were called in, and the doctors were able to successfully remove all 61 remaining balloons. Needless to say, our clumsy mule was arrested immediately after recovering. Mohammed Ashan. Terrorists are not exactly known for their intellect at the best of time. They blow themselves up deliberately, spend much of their time preaching nonsense that nobody understands, and very rarely get dates. Even so, Afghan Taliban commander Mohammed Ashan has to represent one of the least cerebral of these operatives. It all started when the United States got intel that Ashan was involved in plotting IED attacks against US and Afghan forces. So they set out to catch him, and officials targeted the Paktika.
No, Macargo, I would not be going to jail or prison in the first place because I am a good girl. I do not do illegal shit. So no, I would not.
A province where Ashan and his insurgent followers operated with a flurry of wanted posters. Basically, the flyers promised informants $100
Pigeon.
for any information.
Pigeon! You naughty. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
That led to the commander's capture. Well, in 2012, something even comedy
Forgive me,
writers
Daddy.
wouldn't ever
I've
imagine happened.
sinned so bad. Do you want to hear how I've sinned, Daddy? Shut up.
The flyers promised informants $100 for any information that led to the commander's capture. Well, in 2012, something even comedy writers wouldn't ever imagine happened. Ashan saunters into a checkpoint in the Sarhauza district and handed himself over and tried to claim the $100 bounty. This guy was literally clutching a wanted poster with his own mugshot and essentially demanding payment for his own capture. The police officers were unsurprisingly absolutely stunned. Imagine the look on their faces as they realized this wasn't a joke or some undercover sting operation. This man was dead serious. They even double-checked the poster and ran a DNA test to confirm. Unsurprisingly, Ashan was immediately arrested, and his arrest became the
Well, don't forget, big dog, $100 in the Middle East. Different monetary context. Remember, this is $100 in the Middle East, and I don't know, when he's saying $100, I don't know if he's saying $100 US translated into the local currency or not. Yeah, so over in the Middle East, 100 USD could very well be quite a big chunk of change.
stuff of legend among law enforcement. Even U.S. officials were baffled, calling his actions a gift from the heavens. One officer reportedly called him the Taliban's version of the office clown. Ruben Zarate. It's a chilly morning in 2008 in Chicago, Illinois, and Ruben Zarate woke up feeling inspired. Not by a motivational quote or a sense of purpose, but by the sheer fact that today is the...
Wait. Did Bill Murray actually say this? Whatever you do, always give 100% unless you're donating blood. Did Bill Murray actually say that? Like, I would buy that he did. And yes, it is solid advice. Okay, he did say that? I mean, can't argue with the logic.
Today, he's finally going to rob a muffler shop. Yes, a muffler shop. Because why rob a bank when you can aim for less money and more grease? So, with a gun, he walks into the shop ready to make history in the Dumbest Criminal Fails Hall of Fame. You see, in the muffler shop, they always locked their money in a safe, and apparently only the store manager had the code. But guess what? The manager wasn't around at the time of the robbery. Now, you'd probably expect Ruben to call their bluff or just call it a day and go home, right? Well, our guy here had other plans. Ruben decides to drop his personal phone number for them so that when the manager comes back, they could give him a call. This criminal mastermind literally...
Wait! This motherfucker goes in to rob the muffler shop. They say only the manager can get in the safe. We don't have a code. And he legit says, cool, here's my phone number. You have him give me a call when he comes back, and I'm gonna come in and collect that money. Savvy? Am I understanding this correctly? He left his phone number, he said, cool, left his phone number with the employees, and said, tell the manager, give me a call when he gets in so I can come in and rob you. I have no words.
Cheer 100 story time. On long patrols, coalition patrols would routinely drop into Afghan bakeries, and each soldier would drop a 20 on the counter and walk out with everything they could carry, leaving the shell-shocked baker wealthy beyond their wildest dreams.
Cool. Okay. Haseo, I don't know because I haven't been drinking at all, so this is just...
Most tame Chicago crime cheer 100.
Revan, I'm guessing it was in the suburbs. This must have been in the southern suburbs.
Literally handed over his contact info like he was networking at a business conference. Worst still, he then threatened them to have the money packaged and ready so when he returns, he'll just come pick up the bags. Well, the employees obviously called the police office, who just came down to the shop and then called Ruben to tell him the manager had arrived and the cash was ready. And they waited.
That's pretty much where we're at.
Shop, and then called Ruben to tell him the manager had arrived and the cash was ready. Then they waited to see if Ruben would actually return. Well, surprise, surprise, the man did. He was arrested on the spot and immediately taken to jail. Bird-brained prank. You've probably had one of those nights where you indulged in one too many shots of whiskey and ended up doing the most embarrassing things. However, two Welsh tourists decided that singing naked or telling embarrassing stories about each other was too basic. So these guys named Reese Owen Jones, 21, and Kerry Mules, 20, from South Wales, broke into the park on Queensland Gold Coast after a night of heavy drinking and swam with the dolphins, let off a fire extinguisher in the...
Okay, we know how fucking dangerous that can be. Swimming with the dolphins? Fuckers are lucky they came out of there with their holes intact. Those dolphins don't fuck around.
After a night of heavy drinking and swam with the dolphins, let off a fire extinguisher in the shark enclosure, and then stole a penguin called Dirk. Well, when they woke up the next day, hungover and with the flightless bird in their apartment, they tried their incompetent best to care for him by feeding him and putting him in the shower. Obviously, that didn't work. The two then later released Dirk into a canal, and that's when they were spotted by locals who called the police. A magistrate fined them with 1,000 Australian dollars, which is the equivalent of 637 pounds at the time each, and warned them to drink a little less vodka. Thankfully,
yeah, I mean, okay. Again, a little disingenuous. This was not a prank. This was not a crime. This was two guys who just got really fucking blackout drunk. And just went, I got an idea. So, I wouldn't say this is dumb criminal. This is... Yes, they stole a penguin, big dog. They stole a penguin and took it home with them, and then actually tried to take care of it, and then just said, fuck it, dumped it into a river. They were very drunk. Oh, I understand criminal mischief is still a thing. Yes, they stole a penguin, big dog. Yes, they stole a fucking penguin.
Poor Dirk was safely rescued and returned to SeaWorld after his untimely kidnapping. Umar Mirza. Even the most dumb criminals know that leaving a trail of incriminating evidence can land you in jail fast. But Umar Mirza obviously missed that entire chapter in the criminal book he read. Because why, in God's name, would this 26-year-old man decide to apply for a job at the store he was planning to rob the very next day? Basically,
not uncommon, actually, for this. Applying, granted, this very likely will not apply to this particular individual. There are plenty of people that have applied for jobs with the intention to steal from them, to get on the inside. That's not uncommon. Maybe they're gonna do something big, or maybe they're planning on, like, skimming the registers. But this is not as crazy as the video was making it out to seem. A lot of people do this. So, now, again, or Shadow, yeah, they are applying for a job, so they have what seems to be a legit reason for being inside the building to stake it out to get a feel for it, or even try to get an interview so they can get into the back room where they get interviewed, and that way they can see the back area of the business and get an idea for it. So yeah, this is not so crazy of an idea as the video is making up. Now, this guy may be doing it in a completely different way than we're thinking of. But on its face, this is not so insane.
Basically, Umar walked into the Paddy Power betting shop in Birmingham, England, and pointed a gun at the employee at the cash register, threatening to shoot if he didn't start stuffing dollar bills into a bag. Well, the employee, absolutely terrified, complied and emptied both the cash register and safe, and Umar walked away with £16,000. Now, instead of just trying to get out without doing anything stupid,
Cheer 100. When I was a kid, my dad worked at a dollar store and someone decided to rob the store. He got held at gunpoint and the cash register jammed and said, "Please wait." And the guy told my dad to hurry up, and when he got it open he stole money and a bag of merchandise, but this dumbass forgot his wallet.
Happens more often than you think, broken spine. The majority of criminals are not smart. We are seeing highlighted dumb people, but the majority of street-level criminals are not smart. And they will fairly frequently leave incriminating and identifying evidence of themselves behind at a crime scene. This is not uncommon.
this guy, in a fit of happiness, prematurely removed his mask as he was about to leave the shop and exposed his face to the ever-watchful CCTV cameras outside. Now, this is where the whole situation gets even more stupid. You see, on a normal day, it would have taken the police at least weeks to identify who the robber was. But because Umar had come in the day before to submit his CV, the manager immediately recognized him. To make matters worse, this Umar guy also had a gambling addiction and would visit the store regularly to bet, so he was also identified as a regular customer. Well,
okay, doubly stupid then. He's there all the damn time and applied for a job there. I'm honestly surprised they didn't recognize him by voice alone. If he's there frequently and also applied for a job. I would have thought they would have recognized the sound of his voice and go, "You sound familiar."
all the manager had to do was just hand over Umar's resume to the authorities, and when the police searched his home, they found all the evidence they needed. The imitation firearm, the betting slip, and the bag in which he transported the cash. He was arrested and sentenced to 6 years.
Well, Daddy, again, it's for some, it's like they know the ins and outs of the location. And, maybe they could disguise themselves so they're not immediately recognizable, but it's not a wise idea. No, obviously. It's not a wise idea
I
to
just
do crime in
got
the first
word one of
place.
my nieces is in labor.
Oh, Falcon's gonna be an unkie! Congrats! Let us know. Let us, hopefully, if she delivers by tomorrow's stream, let us know if it's a boy or a girl.
In jail. Charles Ray Fuller. Charles Ray Fuller probably thought that the motto, all for one and one for all, probably applied to people's cash too. Because why the hell did this guy think that walking into a bank with a fake check of $360 billion was the fastest way to get rich? Well, that's exactly what he did in 2008. To put this in perspective, $360 billion rivals the annual revenue of most Fortune 500 companies. Now, pause and imagine being that bank teller. You're used to people.
In 2008, $360 billion rivaled most country deficits in 2008. Check fraud of the dumbest variety, Merlin. He came in with a bogus check for $360 billion. It's a brain trust on this guy. Holy
Fortune
shit.
500 company. Now, pause and imagine being that bank teller. You're used to people cashing paychecks or withdrawing a few $100. Then this guy comes in with a piece of paper claiming he's richer than Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and the entire GDP of a small country combined. Like, why would he even think they'd believe him? Even if it were real, did he think the teller would just whip out their billionaire bills drawer and hand it over? According to Charles, the check was allegedly from his girlfriend's mother, Paula Prettyman, but when they called her, she confirmed she had not issued any checks like that. The bank staff immediately flagged the check as fake because, shocker, banks are pretty good at spotting fraud. Instead of walking out with his imaginary billions, Charles found himself walking into police custody. When the cops arrived, they found not just the bogus check, but also a gun and some marijuana on him. Because if you're gonna commit check fraud, why not double down and bring more incriminating evidence to the party? Charles was arrested on charges of forgery, unlawful possession of a firearm.
Yes. Yes, big dog. Actually, it wasn't somebody, it was a company. Who was it that they tried to do that to? It was fairly recent. Was it Google? Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think it was Google. They tried to sue Google for more money than could ever exist. Correct. Yeah, that's well. I couldn't remember what company it was. I knew it was a person. I knew it was a company.
And possession of a controlled substance. He didn't get his billions, but he did get a lot of attention for being hilariously inept. Donald Pugh.
He saw Catch Me If You Can and decided I'll just do one check instead of multiple checks. Cheer 100.
Day 10? You may not be wrong. How many people watched Catch Me If You Can did not realize that it's a fictionalized representation of a real-life event and said, I can do that?
Honestly, we are not to talk smack about anybody or on the intellect of individuals we don't know, but the truth about this particular matter is that Pugh might not be the smartest person in the room. For starters, this guy was already wanted by the police for failing to appear in court for his DUI cases, and was also a person of interest in another unrelated arson and vandalism case. And to be honest, those were just the few of his crimes that were being looked at. So the investigators decided to dig up a mugshot of the guy and post on Facebook just to see if they'd get any good leads or tips. What they did not expect, though, was that Pugh himself would contact them. Yeah, you heard that right. The wanted criminal contacted them himself because he didn't like the photo of him they put up. So he sent them a more current picture of himself that looked way better. He probably thought it was Tinder or something. As would be expected, he was arrested in Florida soon after, and the worst part is that his newest mugshot ended up being infinitely creepier than the first one.
Honestly, not so insane. When it comes to the social media insanity, that isn't the craziest thing that we've ever seen when it comes to criminals and social media. It's funny as hell, but it's not the craziest thing we've ever seen.